Oh, welcome back to my channel. Happy to find you here. Welcome to any new subscribers. I hope you stay for a good long while. Bring your friend with you next time. As we know, the hot topic right now is DEI, the diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. And I am going to do two videos in response to that, and hopefully just in an abbreviated form, because as you know, this is my field. I've been in this field of human resource personnel management for years and was very involved in what I would call the reclamation of DEI. So this video, I'm going to just give us just a brief review and understanding of how we can get sidetracked and confused as to the concepts of DEI and how the development of the present state of DEI have come to be. And then in my next video, I'm wanting to address the issue of progress, if any, regarding the dismantling, I'd say, of DEI, and particularly bouncing it off of Reverend Al Sharpton and entrepreneur Tabitha Brown, their views. They are not in disagreement, but they are, in my words, unaligned. They are not aligned, and alignment is very crucial. So let's just look at DEI, and I'm just talking off the top of my head as a practitioner of it, as a leader of a department of it, and the importance of it in the workplace. This new version, what I call version of DEI, has been braided in and commingled with the overall equality of work, meaning it is braided into affirmative action or bounced against affirmative action, reference to affirmative action. It is the same for the Civil Rights Act. This new DEI is bounced against the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It is bounced against the lack of our enforcement of diversity training within the workplace, including harassment training, sexual harassment training, workplace hostility, those type of diverse training with diverse groups of people. It is also launched against the 1988 Starbucks legalities regarding DEI at that particular company. Now, I'm sharing all that to say this. While those acts, while those initiatives, while those legalities, while those progresses are forms of diversity, equity, and equality, they are not in their entirety the DEI by which all the news is being made of today. And that's important to know that. That's important to know that because unless you're in the field, or unless you are a business owner by which you are considering in a decision making of the adoption into DEI of your company, you've no interest, or you've limited interest. Most people are limited interest. People are people. We just go to work, and we want a good, healthy work environment. And as long as you don't mess with me, I'm good, kind of thing. But these initiatives, and particularly DEI, is far more than just your next job and you feeling comfortable within it, I'd say, as a hands-on user, I'm speaking. Now, having said that, let me add a little bit more layering. I feel a little more layering just because I'm speaking to you and not knowing what your understanding or even interest may be. But it is important, particularly now, as we see what, in my words, are the quicksanding of DEI. The reason it's so important is because affirmative action kind of went away. The the Civil Rights Act did not go away, but it certainly has been worked around. I'll say it that way. There is no more what we call quotas in hiring. There's none of that anymore to enforce an understanding of true equity of all persons, in particular Black people. Now, a lot of times now they want to say people of color, and then you still dismiss Black people, which is why it was so crucial to word DEI in its legislative vernacular in the way that it's worded, because it calls out the understanding that Black people have been inequalized, it lack a diversity, not included, not even in a meeting most of the times. So it's far more than that. It's far more than that. Now, at the beginning, I said DEI, as we are discussing it today, possibly being dismantled, or what I call quicksanding, being launched on, braided to, leaned on these other acts. The intention is to say those acts are archaic and no longer needed. They're already cemented. We're not going to touch that. But here's the problem with that. DEI has not been cemented. It is not archaic. DEI, by which we're speaking now, has only birthed since 2020. And it had unstable legs because what happened in 2020? COVID happened. So companies were dealing with the pandemic and then also happened to incorporate this new launching called diversity, equity, and inclusion. A few months ago, maybe last year, but I'll search for it and I'll put it in the description box as a link if you're interested. I did a video by which I was explaining diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I was saying, even at that time, I recall that even the acronym DEI was challenged at the time in naming it in its progression, I'll say, because of the true acronym, if you did diversity, equity, and inclusion in its, now I'm talking as an HR practitioner, so I'm trying to speak such that everyone will get this. You truly, if you would want to consider everyone, it would be in the order of diversity, inclusion, and equity. The inclusion would be the meat of the sandwich. The inclusion would be the breadth of it all. And it would be sandwiched by diversity and equity. But that acronym would spell DIE, diversity, inclusion, and equity. DIE. The legislators hated the acronym DIE because it spelled the word die. And they said it's going to die before we put all this work into it. And it's just going to die anyway. So we'll become fruitless and we'll switch it around. And we'll say diversity, equity, and inclusion. And right when we did that, I said it's not going to make it. Now that was me that was me, what, 4 or 5 years ago saying that. The reason I said that, and it's not making it, as you can see, it's still DIE, dying. The reason I said that is because when you switch it, when you switch it, you lose the synchronization of the pattern by which it is to occur anyway. So you've made it lopsided. You cannot have equity before you have inclusion. To whom is the equity given? You must have inclusion. So if you say diversity and then equity and then last inclusion, it's understood in words, but it is not good in your playbook. I'll put it that way. Just in layman understanding, it's not good in your playbook because it's not in synchronization. It is not in flow. It does not have step A, B, C, step 1, 2, 3, step 4, 5, 6. It is not ordered properly. So it's like that. And here we are right now with it being challenged, I'll say. So having said that, here we are now, and it is worth noting this. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, as we know it now, was adopted by the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020. Now that's its true history. And it went through legislation and it morphed out to all these companies as a requirement. To remove the requirement in a true legislative state, you have to unlegislate the requirement. And rarely do we unlegislate, because unlegislature means there was either one, not a thoughtful process to begin with, and we know that's not true, or a mistake was made, and you know the government hates to acknowledge that. That's why you never win anything like at a post office or anything like that. The government is not going to acknowledge a mistake. Or the 3, it doesn't benefit a mindset of a superior people. Now, I know that's ugly to say. I know that's difficult to hear. But that's the truth of the matter. And so 2020, Black Lives Matter pushed for the diversity, equity, inclusion after renaming it that, after renaming it from diversity, inclusion, and equity, switching it, going back to all of the filings they did to just switch the acronym. That was done. Switch it and take it in and put it on President Joe Biden's desk to be signed as an executive order in 2021. Now, there you have the field, the Personnel Management, FLSA, Fair Labor Standards Act, FEHA, Fair Employment Housing Act, all of these acts, a bureaucratic acts, before it even hits your company. So all of that before it even hits your company. Okay. So now we see all the work that went forth from it. Now let's say it's in your company. The work becomes the human resource personnel department's requirement to do 3 things. 1, educate everyone at the company as to what it is. 2, post the filings. do filings, report back to government, report internally, report externally that we are practicing this to be compliant, I'll say. And then number 3, to make sure that it is procedurally and policy and practice in your employees' communication. It could be employee manual, it could be the lunchroom, break room, but to make sure that the word is out there. And all that had to happen. To train the managers on it, to give diversity training, to bring an expert in, all of that had to happen. So that 2 to 3 years later, under a new legislation, it's just gone away. So I'm sure you can sense my views about it's just going away. Let me put it to you this way. You don't prepare for something, a marriage, having your first child, buying your first home, taking your first major vacation. You don't prepare for a big thing only to get to the finish line of it and go, never mind. That's like being in the Super Bowl going, oh, we're the team to go, we're in the Super Bowl. But you know what? The opposing team got there first, and we're just not going to show up. Never mind for the Super Bowl. Let them have it. This is nonsense. This is nonsense. Too much work has gone into it. We want a reward. We want a reward. I know I do. I embraced it. I embraced it not as a African American Black woman who is fair-based minded and who has a humanistic approach to everything. I embraced it because it allowed a training and a shift in mindset for those who were unlike me to be able to see like me, even though they were not me in my life experience. Diversity, equity, inclusion did that. Now you're saying it's unnecessary. And that to me, now these are my words as a practitioner and as just a person, that to me brings us back to what DEI bounces off of, as I said earlier. That takes us back to the civil rights days. That takes us back to 1964. That takes us back to the affirmative action days. That takes us back. And we're trying to move forward in progress. You don't move forward in progress by taking back that which you worked so hard for, is what I'm saying. So there's just a little brief, simple, what I hope to be simple explanation as to the entire understanding of DEI and how giving it a choice, taking away the legislative piece of it, it is a quicksanding of it. And I would say most HRs, we're like, well, what? We like that. We're like, I can't undo this now. And leave the choice to the company is like leaving the choice to your teenage child while you're on vacation and they didn't come with you, that they won't touch the alcohol in the cabinet. Now, I know that's a harsh way of looking at it, but it's a temptation. We don't dance around a temptation. We control that. And even if it's something that's lighthearted, as I just gave that example, you still put the best safeguards in place. And removing DEI did not do that. So I'm just saying, as a person now. Tune in to my next part 2 of this. And I'm going to be, as I said earlier, addressing the entrepreneurial and the culture collective as to how DEI is being discussed nowadays, okay? But I just want to give this little history of what's really at hand here. And we'll go from there, okay? And I love you. Thank you so much for getting this far. If you've gotten this far, please click like. Please leave a good comment, and I'll see you next time. Part 2 is coming up. And I love you. Have a good day. Bye.